Hello, everyone, and welcome to Raise the Vibe with Liz. I'm your host, Liz Peterson, and today I have guest Mark Mezadourian. For those of you who don't know Mark is an intuitive specializing in connecting with angels and guides. Accessing spirituality with heart-centered practicality is the goal of his work. Free recordings of angel experiences for healing, for clearing, to support empaths, and to build a relationship with angels and guides are available on Instagram, YouTube, and Insight Timer. And you can find him at his name, markmezadourian.com. It's great that Dave Markowitz made the connection with Mark and I, and I'm super excited about this conversation with angels. And he sent me this, and I want to read this because I think it's important. That the main theme in 2024 is a year of change. All the trauma, personal, national, global, is on the surface, and everything that is ready to change is changing. Hallelujah. As spiritually minded people, we have a lot of help, including soothing our anxiety. The best way the angels and guides can help us is by making space for more good to manifest in our lives. Mark, I just love that. Thank you for saying that to me.
You're welcome. Thanks for sharing that. I appreciate that.
And welcome to the
Yeah.
show.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, happy to have you. Looking forward to this conversation. So, I kind of want to dive into your history first. So, tell everybody a little bit about who you are and how you came to this work.
Um, as the description said, I'm an intuitive specializing in connecting with angels and guides. My goal with this work is to make it simple and practical and repeatable, not woo-woo, and to focus on us all doing it together. And so it's not like, come to me, I have a gift. It's the opposite, which is let's do this together. Let's share things. Let's share an experience, and recognizing the commonality of our experience right now, which is most everything is unfamiliar to everyone right now. And so if we define anxiety as being about uncertainty, we have a lot of uncertainty right now, which brings forward the question, what could we be certain about? And perhaps something we could be certain about is our spiritual lives. And that when we do tune in, that something happens. That when we do anything that might be considered a ritual, be that taking a walk, lighting a candle, meditating, breathing, whatever it is, that our bodies relax in a certain way. And I came to this work through, like most people, suffering or insight. I came to this work through suffering. I had an anxiety attack at the beginning of 1998 that was super informative in terms of like what you're doing isn't working. And so in the healing of that, I got hyper spiritual. Yeah. And that evolved to a space where I started to connect with angels and receive a lot of messages from them. And my core question was, well, what did they say? Rather than what is said about them, what is written about them, what did they say? And that being a space of unconditional love. And also just the relationship that we could build with the angels, that they already have with us, that takes us intention and time to relax into.
Hmm.
So that was the kind of genesis and the trajectory that is maintained since then.
I find your story really fascinating because that same year, 1998, I started really having anxiety attacks and waking up with panic attacks in the middle of the
Wow.
night. It was
Hmm.
April. It was really powerful and a life-changing
Hmm.
experience for me because when you're
Hmm.
experiencing this anxiety and panic, you
Hmm.
don't know where it's coming from. Of course, I did the research and found out that it was, what I was unwilling to look at.
Hmm.
But and it led me onto my path as well. Like
Hmm.
I went and talked to somebody. They gave me a telephone number. It was a psychotherapist that also had a 4-year program teaching Barbara
Wow.
Brennan's work and more. And that's
Hmm.
how, I landed into the school that I landed in. It was such a gift for me. I
Hmm.
also, it's funny you mentioned woo versus metaphysical,
Yeah.
because they say woo, 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 and people really aren't attracted to that. And I was just talking before the interview with someone, that woo is really metaphysical work. It's
Hmm.
metaphysical sciences that's been going
Hmm.
on for years, but for some
Hmm.
reason we've been stuck in a woo category
Uh-huh.
where it's
Yeah.
really metaphysical work in our spiritual work, right?
Yeah. 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 Yeah, I think it's interesting to just notice the different ways that spirituality gets diminished and to recognize, let's ignore that and just do the work, you know, and recognizing that, we all have spiritual lives. And it's a matter of, recognizing that commonality and just has different flavors to it, and to truly to accept that the difference in our era right now, which has a strong obsession with difference. What if we drop out of difference and to see the commonality, which is everyone wants peace and love, you know?
Yeah, we really do. At the heart, we all value peace and love, and we want good
Mm-hmm.
things for ourselves and our families. So I
Yeah.
think if we focus on that, we can see globally,
Mm-hmm.
especially since that's what lockdown showed us, is that we are
Mm-hmm.
global. We, aren't just in our little cubbies around the world just by ourselves, that we
Mm-hmm.
have that commonality, that we want unity. We all want to get along.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And maybe the ones who do feel like that can help our brothers and sisters who need to be lifted up in that regard.
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautifully said.
It's
Indeed.
funny, I was also talking about, I just finished Discovery of Witches. And sorry for the spoiler, but I love the way that they finished it up because it finished
Mm-hmm.
up where everybody needed each other in order to survive.
Mm-hmm.
And
Great.
I think that that's a beautiful thing, to put on a television. I know that, the powers that be, we can use television in order to program, we can use media in order to program.
Mm-hmm.
So what a great thing to try to get out into the world,
Mm-hmm.
to be fed the concept of unity and that we all need each other in this world, I think is a beautiful thing.
Indeed. And it's the truth. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. We're all here together at the same time with purpose. Yeah.
Yeah, with
Yeah.
purpose. So speaking with the angels and
Mm-hmm.
getting down to purpose
Mm-hmm.
and what they have to share with us. So what is the current concept that the angels are sharing with you right now for our time spiritually?
Leadership to be clear of what we're doing spiritually. And this is, and always kind of the specter around spirituality is, oh, it's grandiose. It's the opposite, which is it's humbling. But to allow ourselves through our spiritual practice or practices, no matter what they are, to see the impact of that, which is if we're dropping out of collective fear, if we're dropping into love and focusing on love, if we're allowing our intuition, our ability to heal and to heal ourselves and heal others to be engaged, then we're in a position where we're dropping out of things, but also then leading the way. And we're modeling a lot. We're by dropping out of fear and negativity and the obsession with difference and making people wrong or bad, that we are allowing something brand new to happen. And so, if part of this era is, to say it again, the obsession with differences, and to understand that, to acknowledge that, but not to let that be like the end of things, to recognize that all the trauma is on the surface for everyone. And so, what is it like then to engage with healing trauma, be that personal trauma, national trauma, global trauma, to engage with those things? And what the angels have been coming forward with um, is a whole lot of calm and the advocacy for calm. I just want to say now, of if people want to engage with the work, there's 300 plus free videos on YouTube under my name, Mark Mezadourian. There's also um, meditations, recordings on Insight Timer and such. And they're there for free with purpose, which is to do the work and to allow something to happen. And they're guided, the recordings of guided held spaces that I've done, mainly on Zoom. But with this is just seeing what the angels are advocating for is a remembrance of who we actually are, and also getting into a space of confidence. And if we could see part of the shift as we witness the end of the old masculine, which is shut up, I know more than you, into of the new masculine, which has a confidence that's inclusive and encouraging, which is like, hey, I'm going to be right here. Let's do stuff together.
Mm.
to not be in that space of fear, and to recognize how natural encouragement is, how natural generosity is, and to allow those attributes to have more room and to be active in our lives. Yeah.
Mm, I
So that's
love
the
that.
kind of core angel message right now.
Nice. For our listeners out there who are like, leadership, I'm not feeling like too much of a leader right now. What is it inside of me that would behoove me to step forward in leadership role?
Hmm.
And, we have to acknowledge those fears in society,
Sure.
that we carry around of I'm
Hmm.
not able to have a voice, or, oh, if I'm
Hmm.
seen, then XYZ is going to happen. What do you say to
Hmm.
those people in the world who have that fear about stepping forward into leadership roles?
To honor your character, to honor your personality. It may not be leadership, may not be like speaking to a group of people. It might be being really polite at the grocery store. You know, to if we could just, I think we've all witnessed and felt perhaps um, um, just trusting that it's okay for us to drop out of the narratives that are happening and to choose our own, which would be that we want peace, we want harmony, we want love, and we all want those things. And it sounds simple, but there's a difference here and I'm sure you've noticed it, Liz, of we don't ever talk about the evolution of spirituality.
Mhm.
But like we're not in the guru age, which is like, come to me. We're absolutely not. We're the like, let's do stuff. Let's do things together, which is this is where held spaces are super important. Be that an angel class, be that something on Zoom, be that breath work, what yoga, whatever it is. It's just seeing the gathering is important, and that we allow ourselves to be in situations intentionally where the guard can come down, where the brain waves get long in an era where we have lots of short brain waves all the time, and to remember who we are and letting the fact that our connection with the angels is it feels really good,
Mhm.
and that we connect with it, angels, goddesses, guides, ancestors, masters of expression, the David Bowies, the Frida Kahlos, the Hilma af Klints and such, the Johnny Cashes, people who are mass communicators, that all feels really good. And to see that all this is accessible, which gets into the conversation of, well, what gets in our way, what limits our spiritual lives,
Mhm.
which is one, the specter of grandiosity, like, who are you to talk to Johnny Cash? Well, Johnny wants to talk to you. Joe Strummer wants to talk to you. And also to reframe the idea of worthiness,
Mhm.
that we're taught that we're not worthy. We're taught that only that guy can talk to God and the angels, and that's just absolutely not true.
It's not true.
You know, not true at all. So just seeing where um, I do think the wording of having a relationship with the angels and the guides and the goddesses and such is the most apt, because that is what we are engaging with, you know.
Beautiful. I like that you highlighted too that we all have, kind of sum it up here, gifts to bring to the world. So gift in your way to the
Hmm.
world, or to your
Hmm.
neighbor, or to the cashier, or whoever it might
Hmm.
be. Little
Hmm.
acts of kindness
Hmm.
are really enough.
They are, and they're important, and
Mm.
it does circulate, and it does matter. I think for what you just said, and I appreciate you articulating it that way. If we're just taught that we suck and we don't suck, and that we do matter, everyone matters,
Yeah.
and that just gets suppressed. In that it's okay to be kind, it's okay to feel good, it's okay to change, it's okay to heal. And I think we have an outdated idea that everyone's going to move forward together. I think the kind of the opposite is happening right now, And rather than like, come on guys, let's go together, it is just like, let's change. Let's do things now. And trust that, I think for anyone who's going to listen to this or is listening to this, that there's millions and millions of people who are ready for something different to happen. And that we are not alone and that we're doing it together. And as part of that, it's the understanding that we take turns, that we don't always need to be like in the forefront. We don't always need to be constantly praying or meditating or anything like that, that we take turns and that we trust that there's people who we'll never meet on the other side of the world who have the same kind of podcast, same kind of groups, same kind of sessions, and that they're praying for us as we're praying for them.
I love that because so often it's the opposite. It's, oh, they heard that name from me, or, not supporting the person who's also doing the work, or whatever it might be, instead of we are all needed in the world.
Mm-hmm.
These ideas come to hundreds of people at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
The more healers, the better. There's, somebody for each healer. There's somebody
Mm-hmm.
for each intuitive, and
Mm-hmm.
it's coming together and being like, okay, here's where I am. And I welcome and support those who are also doing the work because the world needs the work,
Yeah.
and lifting each other up and being supportive instead.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Yeah. Yes.
Big
Yeah.
stuff. I like this, Mark. Let's continue going. You mentioned
Sure.
worthiness and change, and I think that
Mm-hmm.
worthiness is a big topic right now, but I also think that change is a big topic too, because post everything that happened 4 years ago, it really gave people a different perspective. And
Mm-hmm.
I know I've been speaking to, it really showed us what is important in our lives and what do we want to be doing
Mm-hmm.
with our lives,
Mm-hmm.
and that we do matter, like you said. And I think that we're all working on our worthiness too. So let's talk a little bit about that and any messages you may have received from
Mm-hmm.
the angels around worthiness, and how we can kind of do that shadow work to look within and see where we may, need to step out into the light a little bit more.
Yeah. Um, and this may sound obvious to everyone because we experienced it, which is the pandemic was traumatic for everyone, traumatizing. And no matter what we believe or not believe, that the traumas were being told what to do, having your patterns changed for you. And then everyone's priorities shifted. And I think everyone's worlds got smaller, and it's just then seeing in the aftermath of that, the decision to re-engage, the decision to work on things, and also perhaps having to have a conscious decision to have fun again.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people aren't having fun. It feels like fun has gotten deprioritized, sleep has gotten deprioritized, and peace has gotten deprioritized. Let's put them all back on the table. So with worthiness, if we couple that with anxiety, which is so prevalent right now, and get into a space of um, taking care of ourselves in that way, and perhaps recognizing the constant messages that we have um, to diminish us. And when we notice that, when we see that, oh, the news is designed to stress me out, which we know, but it's just saying like, oh, they actually are doing that. And to trust that it's okay for us to drop out of these dynamics. So with worthiness, once again, it's never grandiose, but it's just coming to a space of recognizing that we do matter, that Liz matters, Mark matters, everyone listening matters, and it's okay for us to be happy. And then, well, what do we do with that? Which is to trust that in that acknowledgement. And if we recognize that we're healing our worthiness, we could perhaps touch upon the three attributes of healing, which are acknowledgement, to acknowledge what is happening, I feel unworthy, to acceptance, to accept that something different can happen, I am worthy, and to allow that to happen, allowance, and allowing to see what happens with that. And then also with worthiness, to allow that to be aligned with abundance, that there is enough good in the world. There is enough money, there is enough love, there is enough time, there is enough generosity, there is enough encouragement, there are enough ideas. And so this is perhaps, and I think part that doesn't get examined a lot with worthiness and our role in the world is the distraction of feeling you have to negotiate for your good all the time,
Mm,
or you have to justify yourself all the time. And perhaps we recognize that we are all here at this moment with intention, with purpose, and perhaps that we are all here right now to usher in a new era of peace on the planet.
mm. Yeah,
Yeah.
hallelujah. And
And
what
so
better
just
way
seeing, yeah.
to do that
Mhm.
than with angels? And go ahead, Mark, you were getting ready to say.
Oh, it's okay. Okay, it's all good. Just to take care of ourselves and to take care of each other. That it feels like everyone feels overwhelmed and busy, and perhaps that is a space to let some things drop out if possible. And just seeing in all this, we have fantastic technology. This is fantastic technology. It's also really distracting, you know, and, and you know, and to trust that we have mentioned brainwaves before, that everything right now is a short brainwave. And what has gone away, and this is, I think, easier to see in teenagers and younger folks, which is that um, most of our lives are absent of long brainwaves, which would be reading a book, meditating, walking in nature, having a long conversation, doing quote unquote nothing, letting your brain sort and settle itself, as opposed to the constant um, information that's coming to us, which overwhelms us.
Mhm.
And as an act of kindness and self-kindness, it's just recognizing those things. And they do promote anxiety because our brains are working out of balance in that.
I
Yeah.
was just getting
I
ready to
have
say that is a great list for
mhm.
what you can do to lessen anxiety.
Yeah. Yeah. I have on my website a blog called Solutions for Anxiety, which does include, I've mentioned long brainwaves. There's a book that came out probably 5 years ago now called Digital Minimalism by Cal Newport, who works at Georgetown. About the physiological and sociological effects of social media, and that one of the things is that we could text all day, but our bodies are waiting to hear a voice and look in someone's eyes. Where there might be a dopamine hit or two with the texting, but it's just seeing like what's going to bring us actual peace.
Mm.
Michael Beckwith calls our current times like high tech, low touch.
Oh, wow.
But also, in addition to, so he's the one I really learned about the long brainwaves and short brainwaves from. But also, there's an article um, mentioned anxiety being about uncertainty article called "Why Technology Makes Us Anxious" by Ellen Hendrickson or Fredrickson, excuse me, or is it Hendrickson? Not remembering at the moment. Who works at Boston University? She's known as a savvy psychologist, and just um, what is happening with these dynamics to um, promote anxiety. And I noticed from having, a nephew I'm close to, that his generation, they're much more interested in having a filter, be that through email or texting, rather than talk to someone in person.
Mm, it's
And
true.
that's just a big change from what we're used to, and it's just honoring that and honoring that shift, but recognizing, well, why is that? And that we don't know what's going to happen with a one-on-one human in-person interaction. you know
Yeah, it's
yeah,
easier to choose the easy way
yeah.
because with dynamics in a face-to-face meeting, then you not only have to feel all of your own
Hmm.
feelings
Hmm.
and quite
Hmm.
possibly social anxiety, but
Hmm.
also the expectations that we overlay on other people
Hmm.
to what might be coming towards us. So I think that definitely like, all this technology has given us the easy way out of a lot of, um, when I say social maturation of the personality.
Yeah. That's well said. Yeah, that's a good insight, and it's true. Yeah, yeah.
Awesome. Let's dive in a little bit into angels, unless
Mhm.
we want, we also, you gave a great list. So they're actually telling me that we're not quite done with anxiety yet.
Sure.
So
Hmm.
let's dive a little bit more into anxiety and what are
Sure.
some easy things that other easy things that we can do, or not so easy things that we can do to kind of
Hmm.
step out of that anxiousness, especially since, everything's going on in the government right now. We have an upcoming election and everybody's divided in multiple ways. So, what are some ways that we can step back and alleviate ourselves from feeling this anxiousness?
Sure. Well, for everyone listening, everyone who's going to engage with this is a sensitive person for sure. And so, if we perhaps just do some empath spiritual hygiene, which would be, and this will help with anxiety for sure, which is individualize our energy. And the shortcut to that is to perhaps look in a mirror or just say out loud, I am Mark, I'm not anybody else. And just that act of independence and declaration of, like, I am Mark, I'm not anybody else, just instantly move some energy. The second step in that would be to engage our friend Archangel Michael and to say out loud, thank you, Archangel Michael, for surrounding me with 1,000 feet of unconditional love.
Hmm.
And in doing that, it just, so if we picture that 1,000 feet of unconditional love in front of you, behind you, to your left, to your right, above you, and beneath you, that just creates space. And coming back to everything right now is this, everything is making everything small. Let's make things big. And if we could trust that this is the core of what spirituality does, which is to add options, it makes everything bigger. And it gives us room to have a different orientation or a different perspective. So those things, the saying your own name, I am Mark, I'm not anybody else, or I am Mark, I align myself with love. And thank you, Archangel Michael, for surrounding me with 1,000 feet of unconditional love. Those are two quick ways to allow something different to happen. The other ones would be to perhaps, this doesn't get talked about, I think it's worth it, which is, well, which part of us is anxious?
Hmm.
Getting into the conscious adult, which is the us who's talking and the you who is listening, um, and but also trusting we have adolescent cells and child cells. Like who's actually anxious? And America is all those things bunched together and not separated because America's growing up right now, which is causing massive anxiety. But if we have a clarity of, like, so adult self, adolescent self, child self, rather than the ball, then we could trust that something can happen. And as the adult, that we could bring peace to the adolescent selves and the child selves. And that might be like, thank you, angels, for attending to my younger selves. Or even as the adult speaking to your younger selves, which is, I know this is all intense. How about you guys go play and have a snack and I'll handle all the adult stuff? So
Oh,
things like that, just bringing peace. You're going to say something, Liz?
I just love that. I
Mm-hmm.
did a great workshop with State Dr. Stacy Ellis, and
Mm-hmm.
it's taking your little by their hand, being like, okay, I've got this, and knowing
Yeah.
when your little is acting out, knowing when your
Yeah.
teenager is acting out, and knowing when the adult is present.
Mm-hmm.
And when you
Mm-hmm.
see that, you have the awareness and you can catch it. You're like, thank you, little, or
Indeed.
thank you,
Indeed.
teenager.
Yeah.
I've got this.
Yeah. These things are
Yeah,
invaluable. And it seems complex, but it is actually easy, which is, you know, um, we're not going to expect a 5-year-old to go on a date or drive a car,
right.
and just seeing, well, who's anxious? And and how capable we are, and but coming back to America growing up right now, America's very adolescent and very adolescent obsessed.
Mhm.
He's like, I can't believe you said that, all this just drama.
Yes.
And just seeing where if the thing that has shifted in the last several years is that it's no longer okay to be unconscious. So the apocalypse that people are talking about perhaps is that, as opposed to the end of the world, it's the end of unconsciousness. And if this has happened since, like, let's say 2016, we could say, perhaps factually or slightly with a wink wink, since David Bowie died, that everything has changed,
Yes.
and it has. And just seeing where this is uncomfortable for people, but if it's no longer okay to be unconscious, perhaps we're witnessing a lot of people not knowing what to do with that. And so they're giving away their power. And that might seem indiscriminate. And so if we could just notice that there's been a whole lot of obedience happening. And perhaps then we come back to, and so if our goal is to not make anyone wrong or bad, but coming back to um, our own ability to create our own experience, which would be, I am Mark, I'm not anybody else. Thank you, angels, for being with me. I choose to align myself with love. I'm so grateful to live on this peaceful planet. I'm so grateful to have all my needs met and exceeded. I'm so grateful to feel good every single day. And so it is.
Mm. And that feels so good. I was repeating
Mm-hmm.
it in my mind, and it just
Mm-hmm.
brings you to presence and peace.
Yeah.
That was well said, Mark. So
Thank
was
Mhm.
um the message you said about Archangel Michael. I love Archangel Michael. 1,000 feet of space around us, I think.
Unconditional love. Yeah.
Unconditional love around us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Fantastic. How else can we work with Archangel Michael and the other archangels?
To not see any barrier with communicating with them, that there is no gatekeeper, that they're available to us. And if we could just talk for a moment about unconditional love,
Please.
um, which is how the angels communicate with us. I think it's also worth making a point of this is not religious, so all the different angels might be part of certain religions, but if we could see them as free agents, you know, and that, so what is an angel's goal? Which is to connect with us and to help us out, which is a noble goal, and all of it feels good, you know. But unconditional love, which would mean that no matter what has happened, that we are loved, no matter what hasn't happened, that we are loved, no matter what might or might not happen, that we are loved no matter what. And so that thought interrupts the idea of having to earn things, worthiness, all these different dynamics. That we are loved exactly as we are. And we're taught to get hung up on the mistake we made in 1973 or the bad thing we did in 1996, whatever it is. And that those things don't matter to the angels. This is not to say that bad behavior is rewarded at all, but it's just recognizing that we're not done, that we're here, we're alive, which means that we are not done. And it's okay for us to evolve. It's okay for us to change. It's okay for us to get wiser. It's okay for us to become kinder. It's okay to feel good.
I
So
love that.
all those things then free us to engage with the angels. And it helps us, I think, to prescribe roles to the angels, like Archangel Michael's angel of clearing and protection, Archangel Raphael's angel of healing, Archangel Ariel works with environments, including the environment of our lives and the environment that is the planet. Gabriel works with communication, but also there's a space just to say, hey, angels, thank you for helping me.
Mm,
So I think the headline here would be just ask.
I love
And
that.
trusting that we are heard. This comes back to all these things kind of dovetail on each other and circle around each other, which is, Well, who am I to ask? I don't want to take the angels away for something more important. You are important, and they're not limited. They could be with all of us at once. And those things don't get talked about. So the idea of sacrifice, that if we're not feeling great, it's okay to call them in. If we're feeling great, it's okay to call them in. If we're not used to calling them in, it's okay to call them in for the first time. And I think coming back, Liz, to the fact that we all have spiritual experiences, be that in a dream, be that having a deja vu or a premonition, or feeling completely at peace. Even and these things might be a flash or a glimmer. It might be super short, but it gives us the sense of like, okay, there's something bigger happening. And perhaps then we use intention and technique to engage with those things that make the world bigger more consistently. Yeah.
I love that. One of my favorite stories, you were mentioning the different archangels, and I was
Mm-hmm.
traveling down to Las Vegas to see Joe Dispenza speak.
Mm-hmm.
And I sent the angels ahead of me,
Mm-hmm.
you know, to the airplane, to the airport, to the hotel, prepare it for my ease and grace and safety.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm standing in line, and there was just a couple people. I'm on my phone, of course, like everybody else. And then I look up, and all of a sudden, there's a couple more people.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm ushered to a person who's shown up down on the left. And I go down there, and his name tag says Uriel.
How
And I'm
about
like,
that?
oh,
How
thank you,
about that?
Uriel, for
How
your
about
help,
that?
and
Mm-hmm.
checking into the
Mm-hmm.
hotel with ease
Mm-hmm.
and grace and quickly, no problems whatsoever. It was fantastic. But I had to smile when I looked down and saw his name tag.
That's pretty remarkable. Yeah. That's a great story. But it's just getting into this space of um, it's okay to ask. It's okay to intend, and that then things do happen. I think it's worth there's a couple technique things, which is I don't think it works to constantly pray, constantly tune in. That is perhaps for the morning, which is thank you, angels, for this wonderful day. I'm so grateful to have all my interactions be filled with love and light and peace, and all my environments to be infused with love. Anything you guys want me to know? And just get into a space of intention and listening. And then we go about our day, and when things happen, we have a larger context or a very specific context of, oh, that's interesting, that person's freaking out. Or, oh, thank you for having my row to myself on the airplane. Thank you. You know, or to have miracles happen, or for healing to happen,
Mhm.
or to have a heads up something's going to happen. All these things help. And I think also if we two thoughts, which is to not judge guidance and to take away randomness. Um, you know, it may seem insignificant to have guidance come from the angels of things being easier, but it's not. It gets us into a relationship that leads to more. It's like a gateway drug, basically, of like, oh, thanks for the parking space. Oh, can we heal the people who are not feeling well? Yes. Let's put forward intention to heal. Let's put forward intention to have a peaceful planet. All those different things that we're gaining muscle with this as we go along, and allowing ourselves to be pleasantly surprised and to experience great faith. Also, with you know, maybe these things aren't at all random. I think a lot of spirituality gets kind of dismissed or labeled, oh, that was really random. Like, what if it's not? What if nothing's a coincidence? You know? I'm here in Ashland, Oregon. Just today I had the thought of like, oh, I want to talk to so and so, and ran into them on the street. Maybe a small thing is a small thing, but it happened, you know? And just seeing similar to your Joe Dispenza story years ago, I had had a problem with the IRS. I called them and I got a woman who was screaming at me. And so I hung up. I realized, okay, I'm going to pray. So thank you, angels, for my talking to the perfect person. I call back. Guy answers, says his IRS number, says, my name is Angel. How could I help you? And
I love that.
it's like a night and day difference of like, so let's add intention
Mhm.
and see what happens, you know? Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more about intention, Mark? Because
Hmm.
intention is very important, I feel.
Hmm. That if we think of intention as the universe asking a question, which is, what would you like to have happen? What would be the best thing that can happen? And we're so used to, and this is a trauma response, of focusing on what we don't want to have happen.
Mhm.
But what do we want to have happen? Which might be just the flip of what we don't want to have happen, which is we all want peace and love. As I mentioned earlier, it feels like peace has been deprioritized as impossible. Let's put it back on the table. So thank you, angels. Thank you, Mother, Father, God. Thank you, all the goddesses and guides. Thank you for this peaceful planet. Thank you for everyone having their needs met. Thank you for there being an absence of aggression and punishment. Thank you for the release of guns and greed. And thank you for everyone feeling safe everywhere that they go. Thank you for everyone being encouraged. And thank you for everyone having their needs met and exceeded. Thank you for generosity circulating everywhere. And we ask for this or something better.
I love that. And I love how you're saying thank you for.
Mm-hmm. Like it's done.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like it's done.
like it's done. So, so how do we pray? How do we intend? And I think this echoes back, and I'm glad you've brought up worthiness a couple times, which is we're taught, I think, in certain ways of like, oh, gee, God, it's me, Mark, instead of like, thank you, God, with respect, with respect, but this relationship, this conversation, which is, I'm Mark and I'm choosing this. Thank you for supporting me in that.
Mm,
So intention coming into what would you like to have happen? I have, in addition to the spiritual work, I have a theater job that I have. I'm from the theater world. And there's been a quote unquote problem at work, and I prayed about it. And I was back east in Washington, D.C. to help a relative with something. And there's a labyrinth there in Georgetown that I love that I go to. And I was in the center of the labyrinth and I prayed. And just like in a couple hours, like this whole thing that was a problem just changed, you know, and just say, oh, thank you. Thank you. You know, but just seeing where, um, if we interrupt the idea that something is hopeless or helpless and put forward an intention. Thank you, angels, for helping America to thrive. Thank you, angels, for everyone in America feeling seen and heard and having their needs met. Thank you, angels, for interrupting any mistruths or any abuse. Thank you for everyone thriving and everyone telling the truth. Thank you.
beautiful, beautiful intentions, Mark.
Yeah, I do. Thank you. I appreciate that. I think we're just not used to the language. I think that's a big deal of what does this sound like? What is the articulation? In the groups that I do, I have two free held spaces a week, and everyone's welcome to join. It's on my website, Saturdays at 10 Western and Tuesdays at 7 Western. Um, but I ask people for an intention. Like, what do they want to work on that night? And also, then, so we work then for like, maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half hour, depends on what's happening. And then we share at the end. And I intentionally do that so people get to practice articulating their spiritual experience.
Mm,
Is just seeing like, well, where do we get good at this? I listen to a lot. I do almost nothing that he does, but I've listened to Ram Dass quite a bit, and Marianne Williamson quite a bit, and Michael Beckwith
mm,
to learn how to articulate a spiritual experience. You know, and it takes some doing. It's not part of our normal cultural conversation.
mm. Yeah, it's so true.
Hmm. What's that like for you to learn how to articulate things for yourself, and what has built that
Mm.
for you?
Yeah, my life has been a series of learning how to have a voice and then
Hmm.
stepping into the voice. And what is my voice need to be in the moment, or how
Hmm.
can I have a voice? And of course, there's the pendulum's all the way over on one side, and then it swings all the way to the other, and then it comes back to neutral. And then following people who inspire me and how they're
Hmm.
having conversations and how they're having a voice in the world, and looking to um, people that I look up to in society and how they're functioning in the world, and then finding
Hmm.
my voice, my own true voice, and what does that
Hmm.
sound like to me? And it has been, I would say it has been one of my paths in this life to really find and step into my voice and to have a voice,
Hmm.
period. Yeah.
Hmm. Great.
Yeah. For myself and
Hmm.
in society. Yeah.
Hmm. Wonderful.
Mhm.
That's great.
Yeah. Glad to have found it for sure. And
Indeed.
still working on it.
And still
Still
working on it.
working.
We're not done. We're still here. We're alive.
Exactly.
I do think though it's worth it. I appreciate everything you just shared of like we're just not taught how to do this.
Mm-mm.
It's not always modeled for us in
No.
terms of like so, coming out of the spiritual closet, like what is that like? You know? And maybe it's being really quiet and listening. Maybe it's learning how to articulate ourselves. Maybe those two are kind of the same thing in a different way. Like it so if we coming back to when you asked how I got into this, like suffering or insight, most people come to this through suffering. And we're knowing that, okay, this doesn't work, or this is dissatisfying, or this is a disaster, or this tragedy has happened. And so we then have just different orientation. And it's just learning, and I think giving ourselves the grace of being able to learn of like, well, what is this like for me? What is it like if I pray? What is it like if I intend? What's it like if I, draw for 15 minutes and change my brain and then ask an angel for guidance?
Mm,
You know, just all these different things. But just to recognize that these are steps that are not taught always, and that they're important, that we have our own timing with this. You know, I've been doing this, fervently since 2003, and my spiritual life has been much longer than that, but like professionally doing it since then. But it's just seeing like it does change and evolve, and just it doesn't get talked about the evolution of spirituality, but also the evolution of our own spiritual lives,
mhm,
you know, which is the conversations change. I am more apt now, I'm Mr. Fix It. I'm more apt now rather than to intervene or to act, but to stay right here and pray, as opposed to, oh, let me fix that for you,
mm,
you know. And just seeing those differences. What goes away? What goes on the table? What goes off the table?
Well said, all of it, Mark. Thank you for sharing all of that guidance.
You're welcome.
Speaking of guidance,
Yes.
when people are communicating with the angels and they're
Hmm.
asking, like you said a few minutes ago,
Hmm.
angels, what message do you have for me today? Or
Hmm.
something of the like. How do
Hmm.
they know that they're hearing an angel as opposed to themselves?
Yeah. So if we talk about the difference between, great question, talk about the difference between guidance and ego. So the ego, I think, is misunderstood. The ego's job is to keep you alive, and we are alive. So, good job, ego. But the ego is going to want to maintain the status quo, even if things suck. That the ego is going to want to maintain that space, the sameness, and so that might sound like could, would, should, need to, have to, like kind of conditional words and such. Where guidance, and also we're used to that feeling, the ego talking, and it doesn't feel great. It feels small.
Mhm,
So whereas guidance will be almost always a confirmation of what you know, perhaps adding something, but it feels good. And so the difference would be of a sense of possibility, a sense of hope, a sense of bigness. And honestly, this does get into the different ways we receive guidance, which would be seeing, hearing, knowing, and feeling, the different clairs that we have. And so your Uriel story is a confirmation, isn't it?
yes.
Here you are. And also, it's trusting that when we do ask the angels for help, it may not be instantaneous. The feeling might be instantaneous, but that we don't, in a restaurant, we don't order food for the waiter, then follow the waiter back into the kitchen, to make sure they do it right. That we trust, like, thank you, angels, for this peaceful planet. Thank you, angels, for helping my relative who's not feeling well.
Mm.
Thank you for being with my relative who's just transitioned, you know, and to trust that we are heard and that we make room to listen. That's not prescriptive. I want it to happen this way. That doesn't necessarily always work. So the listening would get into a space of grace and to trust that something great can happen at any moment. And that what is the point of engaging with angels, which would be usually from a dramatic point of view, like if we're out of options or feel limited in options, then we're going to ask them for help. But also getting into the muscle of including them would be to let something different happen, to have solutions happen that are not self-generated. Is this answering your question?
Mm. It is lovely. And I'm just, as you're
Mm-hmm.
talking, just feeling the
Mm-hmm.
presence,
Mm-hmm.
feeling the vibrations, your transmission coming through to myself and soon my listeners, and feeling the
Mm-hmm.
angelic, that peacefulness that is just here with
Mm-hmm.
us during this conversation,
Mm-hmm.
and trying not to get distracted by it and trying to stay focused on you. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's coming across beautifully. I love everything that you're sharing.
Mm-hmm.
I love working with the angels personally. I've been doing it for years. I think ever
Mm-hmm.
since Doreen Virtue,
Mm-hmm.
came on the scene with Hay
Mm-hmm.
House.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful work. I appreciate anyone who's doing angel work in society. It's much needed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what do you think? So, what you're talking, and what I keep hearing is like the purpose of the angels. They're there, and we're like, thank you for this, and thank you for that. And I want to get a little bit into purpose and how they can benefit our lives
Mm-hmm.
before we wrap it up.
Sure, their purpose is to help us out. So if we think of the word angel means messenger of God. And if we could think of, when I say mother, father, God, that God is unconditional love. And so if we think of the angels are there to help us and that they are not human, they don't have human attributes. And they will appear to us as we, as individuals, will best recognize them. If that is a color, great. If that's a silhouette with wings, or if that's a figure with wings, fantastic. Or if it's just a figure without wings, fantastic. That they will come as we will best recognize them. So there's not one way; they're not static in that way. Um, so the purpose of the angels would be to make the world bigger, to make our lives bigger, to help us remember who we are,
Hmm.
and that we do have agency, we are powerful, we are heard, and that just straight up our thoughts matter, our words matter, our intentions matter.
Yes, they
And
do.
in our, pardon?
I said, yes, they do.
Yes, they do. So if we could look at just coming to help answer your question, like we live in a time where there's so much distraction.
Hmm.
And if we are not distracted and we get to thank you, angels, for this wonderful day. Thank you for this wonderful conversation with Liz. And thank you for blessing everyone who's listening to this conversation with Liz. Thank you. Thank you for listening. And just seeing what that does in terms of, allowing more options to take place. And just to give a quick example, so I years ago worked with someone who moved in with a roommate. They broke up with a boyfriend. That was a long thing coming. And then they moved in with someone and just was not a match with them and at all. So they signed a lease and they were stressed out. We gave it to the angels. The client let me know like weeks later that the new roommate had gotten a boyfriend in a different city and was never home. So it's like, okay,
Problem solved.
problem solved. So we don't prescribe, you know. So, but the angels, I think this is where there gets to be a hang up is like we are loved. They do love us. They want to help. Let's ask them to help. We do work with the law of free will that we get to ask, and then we get to receive and not prescribe.
And I love that part of it too. Ask and
Mm-hmm.
not prescribe. And what you said earlier, and I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to sum it up
Sure.
to that it often shows up differently than what we perceive or
Yep.
how it's going to
Mm-hmm.
show up.
Yeah. Which is why we say, I ask for this or something better. Thank you for this peaceful planet. I ask for this or something better. And that could happen 5 minutes from now, you know?
Nice.
Yeah,
Ooh, peaceful planet. Yes.
indeed.
What do they have to say about everything that's going on right now?
That we're being, so the planet's asking for our attention. And everything is so loud that we're focused on personalities and such. Let's trust that it's okay to focus on having a peaceful planet, which includes having happy lives. And that it's okay to not give away our power anymore. And this is not, there's no fight, there's absolutely no fight, but to allow kindness at the grocery store to lead to kindness in government and corporations,
Mm,
to feel the might of our decisions. And once again, so to notice when we are distracted and perhaps coming back to, well, what do I want to have happen right now? I don't have any use for guns. Thank you, angels, for there being no guns in the world.
mm.
So just getting into this is their core message, which is let's be right here. Let's be big right here. Let's communicate with angels, goddesses, and guides, and let's talk about what we want and continue to focus and to allow, to change, and to let the highest good happen.
Nice. I love that. We have a couple of minutes
Mm-hmm.
before we come to an end of our conversation. Would you like to guide us through a short angel meditation before we wrap up?
Yeah, why don't we just say, I appreciate that. Why don't we just say a prayer? Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay. So thank you, Mother, Father, God. Thank you, archangels and ascended masters, for the perfect grace, perfect clarity, and perfect peace that is here for each of us and all of us right now. As we celebrate this moment, we celebrate all the good that is here right now. We celebrate feeling and knowing that we are seen, heard, loved, celebrated, and encouraged. We celebrate the bigness of this moment. We allow right now for anything that feels like or is pain to be relieved. We allow right now for the paradigm of punishment to cease. We allow encouragement, generosity, grace, ease, happiness, joy, fun, connection, community, coherence, and celebration to be part of our experience right now. And we celebrate life, and we celebrate all of life, all people, animals, nature, the planet, the universe, thriving in all ways, and there being enough for all. And with joy and peace, we ask for this or something better right now in all directions of time. And so it is.
And so it is. Thank you so much, Mark. Usually I ask my guests for a jewel of wisdom, but I think that is a jewel within itself. Thank you so much for that prayer. That was
You're
beautiful.
welcome. I
And thank you.
appreciate. Hmm?
And thank you so much for joining me today on Raise the Vibe with Liz. It's been such a pleasure to have you, Mark.
Thank you. I appreciate your questions. I appreciate the space that you hold, and I appreciate you doing the work, and I appreciate everyone who's listening. So thank you all.
Thank you. And how can people reach you, Mark?
My website, markmezadourian.com. Also very active on Instagram and a bit on Facebook. I'm also, as I mentioned, on YouTube under my name. There's lots of free things there, and Insight Timer also. Yeah.
Great. Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you, Mark. It's been a
Welcome.
pleasure.
Yeah. Thank
Thank
you.
you so much for joining me. And thank you everyone for joining me. My name is Liz Peterson, and this is Raise the Vibe with Liz. You can find me on all social media platforms at Raise the Vibe with Liz, and my website at the same, raisethevibewithliz.com. Thank you everyone. And remember to get out there and raise the vibe. Have a great day, everybody. Bye now.